Hi guys, so hope you can hear me okay. Today, bit of a different video. It's a vlog, a DIY vlog, and hopefully by the end of the video you're going to be able to see the makeover that is our garden bench. As you guys know, we only moved in a year ago, and because we live in Scotland, guys, how to put this? We see pretty much 3 months of sun, June being one of them. So that being said, we thought we'd actually make the most of it and get in the garden, and we've recently been doing quite a bit in the garden, just garden maintenance from the winter really. But basically when we moved in, the previous owners had built this wooden bench, which we believe used to be shipping pallets. So it's kind of a rough material. They did paint it with something. Our suspicion is that it was just some kind of random paint, not a paint specific. Hang on, Laszlo's hammering something now. Our suspicion is that they used a random paint, not a paint specific to outdoors or garden furniture, because when we moved in, it was like a bright grey blue colour, and now it's completely faded, and also the wood is completely chipped. So hopefully by the end of everything, we're going to have a different cleaned up bench that we can actually enjoy and use in the summer. We've already made a DIY fire pit. I can't remember if I've shown you that or not. I'll put it in here if I haven't. So we want that bit to be a lovely area we can entertain and just, you know, have cocktails in the summer month around the fire pit. That's the idea. And yeah, hopefully by the end of the vlog, you will see just that. But it's an unusually sunny day here in Scotland, so we are going to take that opportunity.
One of the first things we need to do is sand down the bench, because as you can see, it is so dilapidated, let's say. Each section that you see, part of the sectional, is 2.5 meters in length and almost a whole meter in depth. So it's a pretty large area that we did want to keep. It's in a nice location in the garden, just it needed a lot of TLC. You can see this large piece that's flaking away here, and it was actually quite dangerous. We literally could not use this seating area. But before we could even begin actually sanding the bench down and cleaning it up, we noticed that some of the planks needed hammering in with some nails. If this was us building the bench, FYI, we would have used a drill and screws, but whoever decided to build this bench, let's just say they used all kinds of screws and nails, so that made it harder to actually pull out old ones and replace it with new ones. We have this really tough wire brush, which was actually fantastic to get the flakes off before we started sanding, peeling off the paint, the top layer of paint, which was actually already peeling off because of the weather anyway. That's what I mean. I don't know what paint the previous owners had used, but it definitely wasn't weatherproof, and probably about one coat, if I'm honest. But luckily the wire brush did manage to take it off fairly easily, so that we had a bit more of a flat surface to work with when it came to sanding. And of course, we would have actually done this last year, but we just didn't have time, and we also didn't have many sunny days. Believe it or not, even this year in Scotland, we've had even less sunny days, so that's why it took us, you know, until the end of May practically to actually go outside and get started with this project. In terms of the colour that we wanted to paint the bench, we wanted it to practically resemble wood, and initially we thought, okay, we can scrub it down, we can sand it down, and then actually use a type of wood varnish or wood treatment, wood stain, whatever you want to call it, But unfortunately, the wood is just not appropriate for that because it was an old shipping pallet. So we thought that the next best option was to choose a paint colour that was a neutral tone resembling wood. And it was we opted for a warm toned brown in the end. I will also put some inspirational images of what we wanted to achieve with the look of the sectional and patio area, because that also determined the paint colour in the end. We didn't want it to necessarily look like a DIY pallet sectional. We didn't want it to be obvious, at least. So this is the kind of look we were going for. We wanted it to look like a piece of garden furniture you would buy at the garden centre. So that's why we chose this rich, warm-toned brown paint. So after the planks were nailed in, and we definitely made sure that it was sturdy enough to sit on, and all the flakes and wood chips were scraped off using the wire, it was then time to sand it down, and we had a sander each. I was using a sheet sander that we already had, and Lazo was using an orbital sander that we had just purchased, and I have mixed feelings about both of them because the orbital sander basically stopped working after a while, and the sheet sander as well, we've had it for so many years and we'd leave it a couple of hours and it would work again, so we couldn't sand as quickly as we wanted. Because the wood wasn't treated at all, it was extremely rough, and that's even after scraping everything down. What needed to happen was using a very gritty, rough sandpaper, and that made our lives 10 times easier in all honesty. Like I said, it honestly has not been good weather at all in Scotland this year. Luckily we've had some nice days in summer, but even then, when the sun came out, you best believe we were out there sanding all day long. Because we honestly are not used to the sun, it might sound ridiculous, but we're really not. We got really sunburnt that day. You can see what I mean when I say the grey-blue paint that the previous owners had put on did stain the wood. I mean, there was no way we could have turned this into just using a wood stain to bring out the wood colour. No, it was going to be a thick type of opaque paint we needed to put on top. And all in all, we just absolutely hated the greyness of this area. I mean, we hate the greyness of our house on the outside and the interior. The previous owner's favourite colour was clearly grey, which is why we wanted a change to bring some colour to this area in the garden. Obviously, we just moved in last year, so that's why the garden is so bare. That's why in the future, we will bring lots of colour to the garden. This is the bench fully sanded. I know it doesn't exactly look amazing or anything, but believe me, it's so much better than it was. And there were a couple of holes, so we filled that with wood filler, and then we'll sand that down before we start painting. As you can see, we've already started painting with the Cuprinol Harvest brown colour. And yeah, the bench isn't exactly softwood. Well, it was very rough, the texture. Almost like a fence panel, so that's why we chose this type of waterproof paint. That was really important to us because I told you the previous owners had put on a coat of paint, but it had already weathered within, I assume, a year of them putting it on. So we wanted something that was going to be durable, because you know what it's like in Scotland with the weather. It rains most of the year, believe it or not. So it requires 3 coats, and this is us on our first coat. So there is a while to go. And this is the walkway leading up to the sectional. The patio, I mean, you can see that needs a deep clean. Again, I really don't know if the previous owners ever scrubbed it down and cleaned it, but I will be doing that. And I will show you the full painted sectional later on in the video.
So now that it's actually a sunny weekend, we are in the garden again. And today we're going to be potting some plants that we just bought from the garden centre. Actually, I should give you a little bit of an update about that really, because if you watched the previous garden-ish vlog, which was about a year ago by now, you would have heard us say that we love roses and we're trying to, I guess, create a cottage type garden. Well, that's out the window now. Forget all of that, forget everything I've said, because we're now going for actually a Japanese ornamental type garden. I wouldn't go as far as to say a Zen garden with, you know, lots of decorations and sculptures and things like that. A more natural one. But the whole reason behind all of that is because we want the garden to match the interior of the house. But you might be thinking, wait, I swear you guys said you wanted to do like a country interior. Well, that's changed too. And we are actually doing a mid-century modern meets Zen interior. And the reason for that is just because we feel like it suits our styles a bit more, I guess. And as much as I love country and cottage interiors, I think I would get bored of that eventually, and mid-century modern allows for more modern pieces to come in, and it just goes with a lot more things we can change over time. And in all honesty, I think it's just more of our taste, so trust me, you will see updates of that. And I'm sorry I haven't done a vlog in a very long time. It's just we literally haven't done any house projects recently. And like I said, once the sun is actually out in Scotland, we are out in the garden, so it's more garden projects over the summer months. And yeah, that's the reason why we want to go for a more Japanese/Zen inspired garden. We didn't really plant that much last year, just tomatoes and some roses. Obviously roses aren't really in Japanese gardens, but we'll try find a way to make them work. So yesterday we went to the garden centre and bought a lovely hosta. Absolutely love hostas, really vibrant. I'll show you, it's a really vibrant coloured one. And I actually wanted to buy a Hakonokloa, which is a type of Japanese grass, and it has a lovely waterfall effect where the grass tilts downwards over the pot. But anyway, they didn't have that at the garden centre, so I just went with a normal Carex sedge. I think it's Evercream. I'll put a photo of it here, because this is the type of configuration we're going for just near the bench. This is kind of what we're trying to create. So that's on today's agenda. I want to pot the plants, clean the patio if I have time, maybe even get rid of a plant. We have a dead Japanese maple, unfortunately, from last year. The variety is called Shana. It's Acephalmatum. Acephalmatum? I hope I said that right. Yeah, the variety is called Shana. And I actually read online that even some garden centres won't stock Shana because it's just completely unreliable and they have the tendency to die off. Which, if I had known that, I obviously would have bought a different variety instead, maybe like a Bloodgood or something like that. And I just want to say about the hosta, there's been so much debate I've seen online about if you're planting it in a tall pot, should you break down some terracotta pots or put plastic bottles in there, just anything to create some sort of drainage system. However, a lot of people also say don't do that because it can be prone to root rot, and instead do soil from literally bottom to top, so that the roots have a big enough space to develop in. So I think I'm going to do that. Do let me know your thoughts about that. And obviously hostas are renowned for being the favourite food of snails and slugs. So we have a rough pot, which apparently they don't like, and we're thinking of using slug pellets, but our neighbour has a cat and I need to check if it's actually safe for cats, this slug pellet mix. So, and I think we're going to put a tray of water at the bottom of the pot as well for the hosta because they like moisture. So yeah, another day of doing the garden, and I'll update you after all the plants on how we're going to decorate the bench itself, because there's lots of different things we are going to do. It honestly does feel like I'm whinging about the weather constantly, but it truly is like that. It's raining all the time or it's grey and you can't really go in the garden. It's not even warm enough to go in the garden. So when the sun is out, we are out in the garden, we're enjoying the garden, we're barbecuing, you name it. It's not just us, it's the whole of the UK, trust me. So that's why the progress seems to be so stagnant with the garden bench project. But yeah, we'll get there in the end.
Sorry, just jumping in here. When I say a more natural Japanese garden or Zen garden, I think a really good example that illustrates my point is Mr. Ishihara's gardens, and he exhibits at the Royal Chelsea Flower Show every single year. I just absolutely love his Japanese gardens. I think they are incredibly relaxing, incredibly natural, and doesn't rely on too many, I guess, ornaments, which I really appreciate. I think that's the type of garden we're going for. So these are the pots that we bought. They were from B&M. If you're in the UK, you know what that is. I guess the American version would be like Target. It's the closest thing we have to a Target. And like I said, we're going for a Zen Japanese type look. So that's why we went for grey. But I think a lot of the pots we get in the future will be black and grey. Because B&M is really affordable, which is absolutely great. We got the pots for a good price. I think the big one was about £20 and the small one is about 11, I think. Really good prices for such tall pots. But because of that, they don't have any drainage holes. So we thought we'd just put some in. I'm putting 3 at the bottom right now, just to make sure that the plants do get drainage. Which, oh yeah, I should probably say, I mean, it's pretty obvious that these are plastic pots, so drilling holes were easy. So this is the grass that I got in the end. It's a Carex or sedge, and it's in the variety Ever Cream. So it's a green stripe in the middle with 2 cream colour stripes on the outside. And what I love about grasses is that they pretty much take care of themselves. They do require specific soil mix, which I'll explain in a minute. So in the smaller pot, I want the grass. And in the yellow bucket, I'm just going to put together a compost mixture. Ornamental grasses love loam-based compost like John Innes No. 2, combined with a loam-free multi-purpose compost to lighten the mix at a ratio of about 4 parts to 1. So I'm doing the measuring out in the bucket using the spade just to make sure that I get the perfect mixture. Because I feel like once you get the mixture of the soil correct, the grass really just takes care of itself, which I love. You can see how it's going to look after I plant it. It would have been nice to get the Hakonocloa because it would have created that waterfall effect, but I probably will purchase that online. The garden centre had loads of different grasses, but they didn't have the Japanese grass, so I think I'll have to purchase that online in the future. And even, strangely, ferns. I wanted to get a fern for this kind of set of 3 plants I was doing in the corner. There were no ferns, so I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong season for planting ferns. I honestly just assumed that there'd be a year-round type plants in the garden centre to purchase, so I do really like the colours that this one gives. It's just something slightly different. And this is the beautiful hosta that I'm going to plant, and the variety is Emerald Charger. You can't really tell on the camera, to be honest, because the lighting is not sunny enough, but it has beautiful, vibrant green leaves with this lovely stripe of yellow in the middle. Right, there's a bit of a story to this, but believe me, I know that hostas like being in shade or partial shade at least, and there are actually some sun-loving hostas that I found on the RHS website, but unfortunately the garden centre didn't have any of those ones either. Actually, the hosta variety was lacking, so I think again I've probably chosen the wrong season to plant a hosta. So I know that this isn't the ideal location to plant a hosta. This area does actually get quite a lot of sun all day long, so that's why I will put a water tray underneath and just monitor it really. I think I might get some burnout on the leaves, but we'll have to just monitor that as time goes on. These are the final plants. It doesn't look like a lot. Like I said, I wanted a fern here as well. And I will change the bottom water tray to black to actually match the pots. And obviously you can see the painted bench in the background as well. And if any of you are based in the UK and you're an amateur gardener like me, I use the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society's website, their growing guides. They have any type of plant, any type of flower, and literally all the information you need in a very concise way of how to actually grow the plant. You know, where to place it in your garden, what kind of sunlight they need, what type of soil mix they need, and that's probably the one I use the most. Very helpful. And I often find myself within the actual garden centre when I've picked up a plant that I wasn't necessarily going to purchase and I've done no research on it, I'll be on the website in the garden centre, and it just makes me know which soil I should buy. And this is just me going to do some good old elbow grease because the patio was looking worse for wear. Believe it or not, I had already scrubbed the patio, but I listened to the instructions on the cleaner, which said to leave it 20 minutes and then scrub. Well, I did that and it did nothing. So this time it's round 2 and I put the solution down and I'm scrubbing straight away. Then I'll leave it for 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'll jet wash it with water. Because it's just looking really sad and dirty, this whole patio area. And like I said, everything's very grey, so it would be nice to put some more flowers. I actually, to be honest with you, want to put some bamboo along that whole wall in large rectangular containers. Now it was a case of actually just dressing the bench, and please excuse our lawn because our lawnmower actually broke, and at this point it was in the shop getting repaired, so that's why the grass is looking crazy. But we got some lanterns. We were going for a modern look, just something contemporary, I guess, just black features and beige or white cushions. Because we really want the feature to be the plants, not so much the seating area, which you'll see. Now, these are actually sun lounger cushions that we went for in the end. We bought them from a site called Rinkit, or Rinkit, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I'll leave it below if you'd like. And it's quite useful. There are the ties, obviously, which is useful in case it gets really windy outside, which it will. It might actually look small on the camera, but like I said, the bench width is about 3 meters almost. So it's honestly huge, and it does fit 3 people on it. 1 person if you want to lie down, and they're incredibly comfy. And we also wanted more space around to put throw cushions, throw pillows anyway. So the lanterns are from B&M, mesh one is from Argos. The cushions are from B&M as well. We bought this tray so that we could put phones on there, and also, most importantly, for drinks in the evening. Now, I don't know if you can tell here, there's lots of flies. The plan was to basically sit outside this night around the lovely fire pit, but apparently what I realised that day later on is that it was Flying Ant Day, where they pretty much all release into nature. And it was awful. You couldn't even enjoy sitting outside. So I'm actually putting this all outside right now, getting ready to sit down and enjoy the bench area. So we couldn't sit outside that day and do the fire pit in the evening. But this is what the bench is looking like now. Obviously a big difference from before. I always want to buy more cushions and more lanterns, but Laszlo thinks I'm absolutely crazy. But believe me, I will be buying more lanterns at least. Now we can actually enjoy sitting out here in the evenings or even in the day. It almost gets full sun all day, this area as well. So it's fantastic for lying in the sun, reading a book or having a drink in the evening around the fire. And this is on another night, not too long ago, when we could actually sit around here. You'll notice that the grass is cut because we have the lawnmower back. So everything was just feeling good and feeling like an actual lovely summer night to enjoy out in the garden. But I think everything turned out great. Just giving, you know, a new lease of life to this area that I don't even know if it was used before. You definitely couldn't sit on the bench, so now we can actually sit there comfortably. And our sunsets are actually really late in Scotland. They're about 10 at night, so this was probably about 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that. And believe it or not, Laszlo confessed to me that he has never had s'mores in his life, so that has changed. I can say that that has finally changed. I hope you liked the patio entertainments area makeover that we did, and stay tuned for more DIY updates in the future. See you in the next video. Bye guys.